Welcome to Your College Bound Kid,
Podcast for parents and families everywhere.
Whether you have kids that plan to attend college or you have current college students, you want them in and you want them to graduate.
You want a quality education that will give you a skill set that will make you marketable for the jobs of today and the jobs of tomorrow. I am Mark Stucker, and I'm a college coach from Metro Atlanta.
And I am Anika Madden, and I am a parent, also from Atlanta, currently in North Carolina.
And I'm David Williams, and I'm a dad from Chicago, Illinois.
This week in the news, we are discussing an article by Eric Hoover, How is COVID-19 Changing Prospective Students' Plans? Mark and Anika are discussing Chapter 115 in the book, How Will I Be Assessed by a College for a Merit Scholarship? The question for this week is bonus content by Mark, looking at how standardized testing requirements are changing due to COVID-19. Our interview is part 2 with Taylor King on the value of the regional public college. And our college spotlight is Ringling College of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida.
Friends, before I get to announcements, Dave, you had a very eventful week. Walk us through Ghost Town at O'Hare to having issues getting a rent-a-car to getting booted out of your hotel.
Yes, this was a week I felt like a billionaire. I had the world to myself. It started when I went.
Dave, before you do that, why don't we just, for our first-time listeners, so Dave's a traveling doctor. He's licensed in 12 states. His home base is Chicago, but he's on the road half the time, and he's back in Chicago half the time. So between when we recorded last time and now, he was stationed in Connecticut for this week's stint. Just that little background. So now why don't you give an update?
Well, last Wednesday when I went into O'Hare Airport, I was shocked. It was an absolute ghost town. In fact, when I went through security, the TSA agent said, "Doc, check your flight. It may be canceled." And in fact, 90% of the flights were canceled. But miraculously, my flight to Hartford was on time. When I boarded the plane, there were only 9 other people on the flight. And when we got into Manchester, it was similarly at Hartford, it was a ghost town. In fact, when I went into the national rental car, the young man at the desk said, "Thank goodness you're the first customer I've had in 2 days." So he said, "Doc, take anything on the lot. BMWs, Mercedes." And I said, "Well, I have to go with the corporate rental." He said, "That's okay. We'll waive all the fees." So I saw a bright orange Dodge Hemi Challenger with yellow striping. That's the one I got. But the shocking thing is Manchester Memorial, where I'm working, is just outside the hot zone. And what shocked me was the ER volumes were like non-existent. If people didn't have COVID, they were not stepping in front of the ED. And in fact, we found out that nationwide emergency room volumes are down 50%. And in fact, all elective surgeries have been canceled. So many of my colleagues, orthopedic surgeons, cardiac surgeons, etc., who rely on elective surgery, their income has been devastated because they can't do any surgeries because everything's been shut down because of the virus. And then lastly, I'm there for my last day. The last day, I get a call from the hotel. I'm at the Hampton Inn, and it said, "Doc, unfortunately, we're shutting down the hotel. We're going to consolidate you at another hotel." And I said, "Wow, did you let all the rest of the guests know?" He said, "We just did. You're the only one."
Yeah, the whole hotel to himself.
The whole hotel to myself. And so then we went to Homewood Suites, and there were 4 other people. And flying back, there were 8 other people on my flight. So folks, when I tell you that the economy has truly been shut down, it has been shut down. It was quite incredible.
Well, I have to tell another story. My friend Dave over here, he's telling me it's like, I'm here and nobody's coming into the emergency room. I got to get where the action is. It'd be like a firefighter who's not going where the fire is. So Dave, why don't you share what you'll be doing the next few weeks?
I'll be in New York City, baby. I'll be working in Edison, New Jersey at JFK Hospital, and then possibly doing some stints elsewhere. But what they're doing is they're repurposing a lot of the ED docs and moving us around to the hot zone. So the real need right now is for hospice intensive care units. So I'll be working in the intensive care and with the hospice there, taking care of the COVID patients. So that's what we'll be doing.
All right, just take care of yourself, protective mask, all that other stuff. We don't want to be hearing about you getting COVID, Dave.
I won't.
Well, you'll be hopefully saving lives. So
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So friends, I rarely read letters on the air. And the reason for that is I listen to a lot of podcasts about podcasting and from experts that train podcasters. And I remember one in particular, it said, don't be that dude who's reading all your great reviews all the time and telling everybody about how great you are. It's not about you. It's about them. So don't waste a second of your time reading your reviews and telling everybody how great your podcast is. I thought, that's a good point. So I rarely read them. But literally 8 minutes before we recorded this, I checked my email. And normally I share everything like this with Dave and Anika, but this is the first time Dave's hearing this. So I'm going to read this email. I'm not going to give a last name because I didn't get permission, but it's from someone named Mary. Here's what it says. Subject, please thank Dave. So here's what it says. I just finished listening to the podcast this week. Dave mentioned that he will be coming to Connecticut to help fight COVID-19. He mentioned New Haven and Manchester specifically. I live in a town adjacent to Manchester and have some friends who are doctors in Manchester. I want to thank Dave from the bottom of my heart for coming to Connecticut to help. This is a tough time for many people and especially tough for those on the front lines. It means so much that he is volunteering to join that fight. Thank you. If he would like some home-baked cookies while he's away from home. How cool is that? Well, I'd be happy to send some with some of my friends. Either way, pass along some sincere gratitude. Mary, she says, avid listener, first-time commentator. P.S. Love the podcast. The information you share is valuable. Look forward to listening every week. I've told many friends about the podcast and the book. Thanks. So that's Mary. Isn't that nice, Dave?
Well, thank you so much, Mary. Your thoughts and your prayers are very, very appreciated. And coming from a guy who's just led the last week on Sonic and McDonald's burgers, I'll take your cookies anytime.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, this is so nice, Dave. We talked about this off air. When he's on the road, he basically goes to work, talks to his wife, Frida, of course, his daughter, Lauren, me, his brother, Dave, Andrew, Kim, his sisters, works out in the hotel gym, reads, and that's about it. So, we were talking and I said, hey, Dave, you're traveling all around. You're licensed in 12 states. I bet we have a bunch of listeners that would love to grab coffee with you sometime. What do you think? He says, sure. So if you're out there and you'd like to meet Dave, shoot us an email at questions@yourcollegeboundkid.com. And if he's coming to a hospital near you, we'll see if we can connect it to you. You can grab coffee.
That'd be awesome, man. That'd be awesome. Thanks so much. Oh, one thing though, they closed down the fitness centers. So I had to go to the Walmart and I got myself a skipping rope. But I realized it's really hard to skip on 57-year-old knees. I said, no problem. I'm just going to go in Irish law. I did about 5 minutes of skipping. My knees said, that's enough.
Yeah, I remember we talked. You were hot when they closed down the workout room there.
That's right.
And here's the second letter. It's like I said, I don't do this often, but this one really had a profound impact on me. Yeah. So, I've been talking with Dave, talking with Anika, and it's been a dilemma. And the dilemma we've had is, do we do a COVID-19 college admissions article every week? On the one hand, we're saying in the news, that's the part of this podcast, and this is certainly what's in the news. So it makes perfect sense. And it does seem to be on people's minds. On the other hand, I know myself and a lot of people have had this experience, and Anika brought it up in her portion. We are so COVID-19 burned out. Like, can we turn somewhere and not hear about COVID-19? So we've kind of had this internal dilemma. Do we keep talking about COVID-19, college admissions, or do we mix it up? And so here's a letter that came in. It really had an impact on me. This is from John in California. Love the podcast, which has been so helpful navigating my high school senior's daughter through the admission maze. Now, as she's getting acceptance letters and have so many kinds of decisions, we have so many questions about if there will even be college in the fall. I know you don't have a lot of answers at this point, but speaking as a high school parent, I implore you to use your experience, insight, and expertise to help us understand what might happen going forward, not just this year, but the years to come. We need to make a decision by May 1st, as you know. You've touched on COVID-19 in the past. But really, talking about anything else at this point almost seems futile when the massive disruption it is causing almost everything we care about. Will colleges open in the fall? If not, will they defer until the following year? How will this affect financial aid, especially in 2 years, when the 2020 taxes will form the base of it? Will the whole system collapse? Again, I fully appreciate you don't have all the answers, but I could spend a lot of time covering all these questions. It'd be great. Thank you for your brilliant work. I've learned so much. That's John from California. So that had a profound impact. It definitely reinforced that we need to stay talking about this. Obviously, we have 5 sections to every podcast. We're not going to turn around and turn our college spotlight into COVID-19, right, Dave? But,
no.
But we are going to continue to talk about it. And it impacted me so much that I was planning on doing a bonus section on how Moody's ratings, Standard & Poor's, Fizz, how these rankings can let you know about the financial health of a school, of a college. But so many massive changes happened just this week alone when it comes to standardized testing. I can't even mention all of them in our intro. I'm going to take our bonus time and talk about that because this is going to have profound implications for the class of 2021 and even the class of 2020. So thanks, John, for that. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I just like to say, you're right, Mark, because every single week you think you're at the end of the COVID story or that you sort of plumbed the depths of it, and then just becomes more serious. From the unemployment numbers that came out, 6 million, to the jobless claims, to the gradual realization that this thing is not going to be gone in 2 weeks' time, maybe June, we don't know. But the fact is that we are in a completely uncharted territory right now. And it's the only thing I know Anika's probably saying, let's get off of COVID.
She's COVID burned out.
She is COVID burned out. But it is the only thing in town right now. So.
Yeah. And so I just thank both of you for inspiring us with your list. We love hearing from our listeners. In fact, for me, one of the most profound experiences in my entire career has been all of the people that I've met through this podcast, whether it's through your emails, commenting on our website. Now that we have a comment feature up, people can comment on interviews and different sections, hitting the comment button, or it's been people that have hired me that I've worked with, or it's just been people that I've had a conversation with or just interacted with in social media. I just love it. Or people I've even met. I've met people like all over the country. So anyway, let's transition or we'll have a 2.5 hour podcast and I'll get a humongous bill from my producer. So I don't want that right now. The longer the podcast, the bigger the bill. So our admissions tip. This is mostly for you seniors who haven't decided what school you're going to and you're open to a few options. I would encourage you to hang out until May 1st for a lot of reasons. I've seen some students come off wait lists that I never see, and I'm seeing students getting better financial aid offers thrown at them. I had a student I'm working with just this week in a pretty brand name school. They threw an extra $9,000 at him per year just to try to incentivize him to sign the dotted line and close the deal. So a lot of cases, colleges need you more than you need them right now. That's how they're operating. And doesn't apply to everyone. The more you move up the prestige meter, the less you'll see this. But it's happening a lot out there. And you've got until May 1st. In fact, schools are extending, many of that are extending that even into June 1st this year. That can work to your advantage from a financial standpoint or getting off the wait list standpoint. So, and I'll have more to say about the wait list in our recommended resource section. And for admissions vernacular, the word of the day is calibrate it. Calibrate it. Now, this is pure inside baseball. Of course, many people know what that word calibrate means, but in an admissions context, when admissions officers, this is one of these words they would never really share in an information session. This is just talking amongst themselves. Calibrate it means that, so normally, let's say you're a pretty selective school. Let's say your typical kid has SAT scores like 1350 to 1450, ACT 3132. You're typically taking a 3839 kind of kid. All right. So that's what you think. That's based on past. when you're reading your files for the year, you learn what the strength of that pool looks like, not just the overall pool, but even from individual regions. And once you've done enough reading, then you're calibrated, and then you sort of know what's going to be an admissible candidate this year versus other years, because you have a sense of what the applicant pool looks like. Does that make sense, Dave?
Yeah, it sure does. I mean, it's like you're the first person in the pile, you look great, but someone comes along and they're even better or worse. So,
one of the best things that helps me sometimes explain admissions to people is the hiring process. So if any of you have ever been hiring, it's like you put a job out there, you kind of have a mind what an ideal applicant is. But once you see what the applicant pool is like, you might lead to either, lessen up those requirements, or you might say, hey, you know what? I'm up in the ante here. I'm requiring more experience, better recs, more precise alignment with what I said, because the people that are applying are like smoking this year. So anyway, that's calibrated.
Let's turn to college hot topics in the news.
All right, Dave, take it away. What do we got for in the news? I know you said it's an Eric Hoover article.
Eric Hoover.
Chronicle of Higher Education.
Yes. How is COVID-19 changing the prospective student plans? Very interesting article. It was a national survey. It was done by a group called the Arts and Science Group. It's a higher education consulting firm. And they did a survey of 487 students. And this was supposed to be an early look at how the outbreak is shaping teenagers' perceptions of college. So we're going to take this point by point, and we're going to do a point counterpoint with each one. So first one, Mark, is they found that 1/6 of high school seniors may delay attending a 4-year college. In fact, they found that of those 1/6, 35% are considering a gap year, 35% are considering enrolling part-time, 7% are considering attending community college, and 6% are just deciding to work full-time. So what thoughts do you have about that, Mark?
Several things. First of all, this is a credible group, okay? Yeah. Art and Science Group survey of almost 500 people. This is not like I asked 15 people, I asked 50 people, I asked 80 people, or even 200. So this is some significant data, and that is a lot. This is why colleges are freaking out. I mean, 1 in 6, that's a lot. I mean, I'm reading exactly quote from the article, 1 in 6 high school students who expected, remember, this is who expected to attend 4-year college full-time before the outbreak, now think they will choose a different path. This is not just 1 in 6 people. These are 1 in 6 people, students who expected to attend, are now choosing a different path. And what I will say is this is something that I am experiencing, particularly with my KIPP students. Many of our regular listeners know I'm director of college counseling. I'm over 4 schools. So I work with about 70 kids, 60 to 70 kids every year, and find them a college home. That's my salary job, gives me benefits and all that. And I do the same thing privately in the evenings and weekends now that I've got empty nest syndrome and I've got time. And I run into all these AAU games. And so this week I had someone kind of stunning. I actually reached out to her because we have internal scholarship money for students. Say, listen, I'm nominating you for a $1,000 to $3,000 scholarship. And this is after she'd already told me where she's going, everything. And then she said, Mr. Sucker, so nice of you to nominate me, but I've changed my plans. I decided I'm not going in the fall. I'm experiencing this. I had 5 students, Dave, this year tell me they're not planning on going to college in the fall. And These are high GPA, 4 of them, 5 are high GPA, high achieving kids. So I'm experiencing this, and that you can imagine why the colleges are freaking out.
Well, as you know, we had a Zoom video call for our family yesterday just to get together.
That I was supposed to be on, by the way.
You were supposed to be on. That's right. But to dovetail, my daughter was talking to her cousin, Tori, who goes to McGill University, and they both reaffirmed that if they have to be doing online classes again next year, both would very easily consider taking a gap year off because that's just not their concept of going to college. So this is not affecting not just incoming high school seniors, but I think freshmen and sophomore and juniors. And it's hard to underestimate the disappointment that a lot of the current college kids feel, especially the juniors and the seniors that missed their graduation, that missed going abroad this year because all of that has been canceled, that have missed their summer opportunities to do research and have missed the residential college experience. So yeah, this has effects that affect all stages of the college life. So if I'm a college administrator, I am concerned.
So what'd you have for your next point, Dave?
3/5 of students are concerned about their ability to attend their first choice college. And only 20% of them are confident that they'll be able to attend their first choice college. So let me dovetail back to you, Mark. What do you think the main driver of that is?
Well, what was most fascinating to me about this point is that the article went on to say it broke down the various reasons. So it says respondents who said they weren't confident they could choose their college atop their list cited various concerns. And here's one. The most prevalent was cost. 21% of the students said their first choice school may no longer be affordable for my family because of COVID-19.
Right.
Another 12% said they have a family that has member that has health concerns, requiring them to change their plans. So, Dave, this is what you're talking about, and this is what I'm experiencing is, my heart just goes out so much to the 75% of Americans that live paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
Because I've done that in the past. I've been there, so I'm particularly empathetic. Praise God that I'm not there now, but I just can only feel for what that is like. Imagine being a waiter or a waitress. Imagine trying to sell, your car. You're selling cars. Who's coming?
Yep.
But here's the thing, and you alluded to this earlier in your intro, Dave. This is not something that is only impacting hourly workers, members of the gig economy, low to moderate income. A lot of people that I work with that are higher income earners are being very much impacted by this. You talked about all the elective surgeries. Yeah. I'll share a very interesting conversation I had with the financial aid director this week. And I was like, man, you must be having a hard time with all of the calls you're getting because of financial situations that have changed. And he's like, you don't know the half of it. Just this morning, I've already had 3 conversations. He said one owns a bundle of rental properties. He's like, my renters aren't paying. What am I going to do? Another one said, I'm in medical sales. Do you know what's going on in medical sales right now? You think anybody wants to see me? Yeah. And just on a personal level, Dave, maybe we could even personally reflect. Yeah. I know you, hey, if you didn't reroute yourself, they're cutting back hours for emergency doctors.
Absolutely.
And you own a lot of properties that have a lot of college students in them. And I know if you want to share, you're already starting to get the calls from students saying that they may not be able to make their rent payments. Is that correct?
I've gotten the call from most of them. And most of them, what we've done is either renegotiated. The easiest thing we did was we immediately gave most of them a 35% cut in their rent. So that was a big deal. There is a big concern that a lot of them that would have been an easy re-up to their lease in the summer, they're not sure if they're going to be back in college. So everything's up in the air. So I know that for a lot of the landlords, it's a very, very hair-raising time. And then we, for doctors, even the ER docs, we never thought that there would come a day when in the midst of a national health emergency, a pandemic, one of the fields that would be so impacted was emergency medicine. But the fact is that ER censuses are getting killed if they're not within the hot zones. And the big need right now is for hospitalists and for COVID-19 services, but everything else has been obliterated. So if you're an orthopedic surgeon, a cardiac surgeon, a plastic surgeon, OBGYN, anybody that relies on elective surgery, they are looking at a potential 2 to 3 month complete cut in their income. And as we said, Mark, that's not anything that anybody's going to recover from in the next 6 months.
Yeah. And one thing that people don't realize, we'll talk more about this in future episodes, but so I want to go into this a lot more actually, but I don't want to, it'd be our own topic for its own in the news. Colleges are a lot like families. So sure, higher income families, they've adjusted their lifestyle to reflect that income. So if they're losing their income, they're going to feel it hard. The same is true for the colleges. You think only the struggling colleges are totally tuition driven are hurting by this? no, this is impacting everybody. In future episodes, I'm going to talk about how it's impacting the wealthiest colleges as well. But we'll save that because I'll get off on a rabbit trail. But here's another quote from the article. The art and science group also asked students how COVID-19 might have influenced their thinking about the qualities they seek in a college. 35% of students said that campus closer to home are now a more realistic option than their first choice school. Some said they were considering a less expensive institution, 32%, with a more familiar social network, 22%, smaller, 15%, or in a safer area, 10%. So I think everybody's just becoming more security conscious.
Yes.
So financial security, less expensive, closer to home. If I need to get home, and that could be generated either by the student or the parent. And so these are just some of the findings from this study of almost 500 students to average income, by the way, in the study was 88,000, pretty even divide between men and women, just to see how this is impacting students and students' thinking. And I was going to touch on this, Dave, because it is the elephant in the room, but I think we should take it up another time as its own entity. And that is, nobody really wants to talk about this. And that is college going to be residential in the fall? What happens if it's not? How might it be different? I was going to get into that now, but it would be another 20-minute conversation. So let's take that up in the very near future. Won't have all the answers, as John said, but like John said, look, I know you don't know everything, but I still like to hear your opinion. And so I think I'd like us to go there coming up certainly within the next 4 weeks.
And I'll just do a teaser to add to that, Mark. And this is a concern I've had. The fact is the only real nail in the coffin to this COVID-19 is a vaccine. And a vaccine is potentially another year, maybe off. And so even if we get control over this, we do the social distance, we flatten the curve. The fact is now we're going to have all these college kids going back to college in the fall without a vaccine. And so if we have any recurrence of these cases, maybe in October, November, we might have to repeat this whole thing, kids scattering, going back home, online classes, because we don't have a vaccine. So it's something that's been in not the back of my mind. We've talked about it. And
we talked about it a lot.
Right.
I think the only thing that I'll say is there's a lot of ingenuity out there. Remember 9/11 and what did it lead to, right? Like now I got to take my laptop out. I got everything security checked down on me when I go through the conveyor belt on a flight. Like I can envision a world where there's lots of fever checking going on, where there's insurance policies in place, either included in your package by the school or outside insurance companies start offering them for protection. But I don't want to get down that path too much because there's a lot I want to say on the fall. And I really think we need to devote an entire episode to that. Colleges will go to whatever extent they need to now, including changing my opinion, they need to bump it back a couple weeks. There's a lot. I mean, for a lot of people, their highlight of their fall is college football. All that stuff can be impacted. So let's come back to that one. We teased it out now. And so that's just a way of getting you to come back and keep listening.
Yeah, that's right.
Anything else, Dave, or you want to transition?
Well, I think we've got most of everything. The last point I had on my list was that they asked students what prompted students to reconsider their first choice options. And not surprisingly, 15% said they weren't able to do it overnight at the school of their choice. And another 11% said they were interested in athletics and they were not able to practice with the team. So I think that just rounds out the article. And then I think we've covered all the points.
Yeah, I did a session with a client this week and she's like, Mark, my top choice school I never got to visit. I've looked at everything on the internet. She asked a really good question. How can I get the campus feel? How can I get the campus feel? And so one of the best things that I set her up to talk to 4 different students that had gone to the school she was interested in and their parents. So that was going to be really helpful for her. But chat rooms. I mean, you are relying on a lot of things, right? That are other than just that visceral effect. And even if you've been to the school, maybe sometimes people visited in the fall of junior year, they really weren't in that mindset now, or their majors have changed, or there's other things they want to visit that they never got to visit. So even for people who have visited, it's another thing when you're about to pull the trigger. So that's tough. That's tough.
Right. Right. And the very last thing I'd like to say is that dealing with like University of Illinois at Chicago, one of the issues that was raised by the realtors was that was a school that is sort of 50-50 a commuter school, but they've tried to build their residential college side of things. But they're projecting that a lot more people who decide to go there will actually use it as a commuter school, since if they're going to have to shelter in place and so forth, they'd rather do that in home than to be having an on-campus apartment with 4 other kids and so forth. So it could change the dynamics of a lot of commuter schools that might be 50-50, and they might find that their residential side suffers somewhat.
Well, and Dave, you were transparent. I'll be transparent. Literally last night I was on with a client, and this is someone who's on a payment plan, and they're like, Mark, I just don't have it right now. I just don't have it. Like, my job is completely changed, and so it impacts all of us. I just be completely transparent. I had less new business this last month, finishing up. We're into April now, but March, I had less new business than any of the previous 10 months. And I know that was COVID.
Right.
It's like, if I understand, like, look, whether it's rent or it's mortgage and utilities and food and transportation, that stuff's coming first. And I get it. So if you're in this situation, we're really empathetic. We'll get into this. I'm still an optimist that something's going to work out positive for the fall, although I don't know, but we'll get more into that later. I like what I see happening with some of the antiviral drugs, which is not the same as a vaccine.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about it later.
Now it's time for our step-by-step walkthrough of the college admissions process.
So, Anika, Javon's got a big birthday coming up. You're about to go fishing with him.
It is today, and as soon as I hit stop, we're going to fish.
I've known you for 11 years, and I've never heard the word fishing come out of your mouth one time. And I just can't picture you with a rod in your hand.
And you shouldn't, because normally I don't. I'm watching them fish. That's a big thing for them. Like, John really, really loves it. But yeah, that's
good.
a thing.
It's like a father-son thing.
And Naya. And
she likes it too.
Yeah, she does. They do. And I do too. I should stop. I'm just not really.
Look at you playing coy. Well, I said, well, what are you guys going to do for your, this is all off air, everybody. I said, what are you doing for your birthday? And you had a good response. There's not a lot we can do.
Right. We will be socially distanced fishing. Did I say that right?
There you go. So here's a question. Are you a mask wearing lady?
No, it's funny because yesterday we were out at the store and that was the most mask I've seen. Like,
Same
more people.
Thing.
Yeah, more people are wearing them now than before. There was, well, to answer your question, no, not yet. Like, I'm just not. But I'm like, okay, thanks, y'all.
I ordered a bunch on Amazon, but they were like back ordered to May 15th.
Oh, really? Wow.
So I might try to make my own. There's a lot of YouTube videos on how to make your own out of cotton.
Well, I saw a lot of makeshift ones. Like, people had their rags and their shirts and all kinds of stuff.
I was using an old winter scarf, just pull up. But then, Joy is like, I don't know if I want to be seen anywhere near you with that thing.
Fashion still exists.
Exactly.
Jeez.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, friend. So I know you heard me in my last segment with Dave talking about how he has volunteered when he's on the road doing his travel doc thing. If anybody wants to meet him at Starbucks for coffee or anything like that, he's down for meeting our listeners, which is so generous of him. But my wife was listening in, Anitra. She popped in afterward and said, why are you telling all the listeners to meet Dave on the road? COVID-19, social distancing. I'm like, I kind of forgot about that.
Well, they can still do it.
So the offer still exists, but either put it on hold or you got to adhere to the 6-foot rule.
Right.
With your masks.
Right.
This is not the world that I envisioned 2020 being.
Anika. No, jeez.
All right, let's get into our content. So we are looking at chapter 115 of 171, Answers to the Most Asked College Admissions Questions, which is a book that I wrote. The Kindle version came out in the start of 2018, and the paperback came out December of 2017. And this chapter, for our first-time listeners, our chapters correspond with the episode numbers, not the titles, but the numbers. So you've read the chapter, Anika. What were your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. As usual, a great chapter. And it looks, what is it, about 6 points on here. Do you want to knock these out one by one?
Yeah, let's go one by one. First, let's tell the listeners the topic.
Okay. So it's all about how you're going to be assessed by a college for a merit scholarship. So we talked about how to get them, right? But now it's how you qualify. I guess where to find them. There's a little combination of stuff.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, the past 3 weeks, we've really talked about where to find them, either specifically like websites or, just overall more general information. But now we're really getting into what determines whether you get it and what methods are used to assess whether or not you qualify. So why don't we start one by one and go through the list?
All right. So the first one we have is the one I love the most. It's automatic inclusion for those that have been reviewed holistically, obviously by the school. So, and I guess for clarification too, Mark, does this mean that you've been reviewed by a holistic process and you've been accepted into a university, and so you're automatically into a pot of consideration for a merit scholarship? Is that what you're saying here?
Well, really what it means is that your admission application is your merit scholarship application.
Okay.
That's what it is. And so in the chapter, I use Duke as an example. And at Duke, all undergraduate students who apply are automatically considered for merit scholarships. They do have a few exceptions. They have the Robertson Scholars Leadership Program. So sometimes there are a few exceptions. But this is saying, your admission application is your scholarship application, but it's still a holistic review. So they are looking at your activities and your recommendations, your extracurriculars, your writing, short answer and personal statement. And they can factor in other things as well. Holistic review, as we know, can be, I once did a webinar for a test prep company on 50 different components of holistic review. So it can be everything from gender, geography, race, college major, grade trends, all, and I'm not going to list all 50, but there's about a dozen.
Okay. Cool beans. All right. So, and what was interesting was the other example you gave, Mark, to me with the Agnes Scott, where they consider you for a certain amount if you apply early decision or early action.
Yes.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So there can be variations of this, right? Like, your scholarship application is automatic using holistic factors, but only for ED, or only if you meet the priority deadline, or only for EA, or certain majors. So schools can create their own stipulations.
Okay.
Want to go on to number 2?
Yep, that did it. And so the next way to be assessed by a college is that you're automatically included based on your GPA and test score. So these are the schools that aren't doing holistic admissions. You just got the scores, so you're in the pot again.
Right. So once again, this is going to be no separate application. Your admission application is your scholarship application. And I use an example in the book. You want to share that?
Actually, no, I don't have that one. I have it where you talk about, like, if you know the indicator that you get one is if you did the net price calculator. I made a note of that.
Yeah. So this is something, I'll tell you what. I guess at the time people hear this, they wouldn't have heard the college spotlight, but Dave and I did the college spotlight for the day, and we talked about how the school, you can get a $6,000 or $8,000 or a $10,000 one. But here's the thing, where when schools are automatically giving you a merit scholarship based on grade point average and test score, and they are pretty much exclusively using that as the metrics to decide if you get a scholarship, then almost always it will be on the college's website. So if you go to the financial aid / scholarship section, and if it says this GPA, this test score gets you 15,000, this gets you 5, this gets you 10, then you know they're doing that. So because if they do this, they want you to know they do this, and it's something that they promote unabashedly. And so why would they not put it on their website?
Okay. And I guess, I shouldn't guess. I should know that this is the way Janaea got her first merit scholarship through A&T, was based on her scores.
Correct.
Okay.
So this would be an example of how she got one.
She
did well on her SAT and her GPA. So
yeah,
she had high numbers. So she had the numbers, she got the money.
All right. Okay. The next way is that there's a separate application. So it's not an automatic consideration. You have to do a separate application that asks for additional information like essays and recommendations.
Exactly. And an example I gave in the book here is Vanderbilt. So Vanderbilt actually gives away 250 full tuition awards, plus summer stipends for study abroad, research, and service projects through their Ingram Scholars, their Cornelius Vanderbilt Scholars, their Chancellor Scholars. So they have 3 different names of programs, but it is an additional recommendation that is required. And this involves additional essays, 2 additional recommendations, and in the case of the Ingram, an on-site interview. So each school gets to stipulate what their process is, but this is going to be the separate application. So this is just important for people to know. Once you find out that a school offers merit scholarships and you get a range of what they offer, now you need to know how you get them.
Right.
Anything else you want to say on that? Should we go to
Yeah,
number
I'm
4?
glad you said additional recommendations because it was something Janaea was working on. And Javon was like, no, she doesn't have to do recommendations because she already did one for the school. Like he thought she could use that same letter of recommendation for all the other stuff, which she could not. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you want to find that out right away. Is the scholarship process different than the admission process? And that can be one of the things. This can really confuse people. So I'm not surprised that tripped them up a little.
Okay. All right. The fourth way is through a school nomination. And you also pointed that you can self-nominate when it comes to these nominations for the scholarships.
Well, let me qualify. So some schools let you self-nominate.
Okay.
Some don't. So, for example, North Carolina, very famous Moorhead Kane Scholarship. The first, I don't know, did you ever meet David Jernigan, Anika?
I remember that name. Who was that?
So when you were at KIP, he would have been, in effect, the superintendent. He was
I do. Okay, I do remember him. Yeah.
Yeah, he won Moorhead Kane. It's a hard scholarship to win.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's the top scholarship at UNC, but those kids compete with any college in the world. Literally, the people that get that are looking at the Stanford, Yales, Harvards, those kind of places. Okay. It's super competitive. That's one that they let you self-nominate, but most of the time you are not allowed to self-nominate. But the bottom line is version 4 requires a nomination. They'll let you know, is it a teacher? Is it a counselor? Can it be like an employer, pastor? How explicit are they? It's going to vary from the scholarship from one school to the next. But the bottom line is this bucket is a nomination is required from somebody in order for you to do it. And then sometimes they change too. Like I've seen recently a few scholarships like the Danforth at WashU. That was one that was a big, like each school could nominate, can't remember if it was 1 or 2, either 1 or 2 people from their whole school, and that was it. But then they changed it. So, once you think you know these, you still need to check them because they can change on you.
Okay. And I was just about to ask you about the number of nominations per school. I guess they get specific in that way too, to say, okay, you can only have 1 per school or 3 per school or
that
from the
depends.
high school. Okay.
Some of them set caps and some of them just say nomination, and let's assume it's a counselor. They'll let the counselor decide, is this person worthy by the criteria? And whether you think this year your school has 11 or they have 1 or 2. So that's also something that varies. That's a great question. Do they put a cap on the nominations or not? You'll find a wide variation there as well.
Okay. All right. The next way of assessment is through an audition or a portfolio that has to be presented by the student.
Yeah, I feel like I'm trying to do a little promo to get people to hang all the way to the end to hear our college spotlight on Ringling College of Art and Design. Ringling College of Art and Design, because when Dave and I yesterday, when we recorded that, we talked a lot about this. That's a huge, huge, huge part of the assessment. And quite honestly, this is typical of anything in the creative realm, whether it's art, music, creative writing, film, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
A portfolio review. So that this is, once again, when we talk about, this is important. When we talk about merit scholarships, we're not only talking about academic scholarships, right? So this would be anything in the artistic realm, which is a good segue to number 6.
I was just about to say that. So the athletic scholarships is the final one.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too much into that because we got a whole segment of a podcast. We're going to deeply dive into that. But I think everybody's familiar with athletic scholarships. Once again, they do vary from school to school, how they're meted out. Are they partial? Are they full? Does the coach get to get slots, literally get slots? And the coach says, look, these are the people that I want. Or does the coach make recommendations and the admission office vets them. Those kind of things vary from school to school. But for now, just know that's another type, the athletic scholarship.
Okay. All right. That did all 6.
Well, there's 7.
Is there? Oh,
yeah.
My bad note-taking self.
Some shoddy note-taking this week. Busted.
Yes,
Busted.
What's number 7?
So number 7 is what we call interview weekend.
Oh, I remember that. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. And interview weekend, you want to comment on it or you want me to comment on it?
Well, okay, let me see what I
Tell
can
me what you think it is.
Yeah, exactly. Because I remember interview weekend being that you're invited specifically, obviously, for a weekend to come. Basically, you're doing like on-site interviews, almost like an audition too. Like other students are there and you're interviewing, I guess, with various faculty or whoever they have designated for the review. Yeah. And they just let you know after you leave there how you perform and if you get the money or not.
Yeah, so there can be a lot of different versions. I was so happy. One of my students, I got to shout her out, Sola. Her name is Sola, a student at the Hotchkiss School. She was the recipient this week of the John B. Irvin Scholarship.
Oh, congratulations.
Which is full tuition at Washington University in St. Louis. Very happy for her.
Oh, one of my favorites. Good job, girl.
Yeah, I did a session with her yesterday. I was so happy for her. It's a super competitive 3% win. So that only, 3% of already a super competitive pool get it. And she got it this year.
Wow.
So here's the thing. So John B. Irvin, of course, it had to be changed because of, we're in this new COVID-19 world. But it's a 4-day mandatory weekend program requirement. 4 days. And there's lots of different ones like this. I've had a lot of different students win merit scholarships at University of Miami. They have several different ones, actually. Stamp being one of them, and they have several others as well. So typically the way these work, initially your admission application serves as the initial phase 1 of your scholarship application, like we talked about. However, once the admission officers read your files and they see you're a high flyer, you're somebody who we think may meet the criteria for our merit scholarship, then you're invited to come and basically go through the whole process at interview weekend. Does that make sense, Anika, or not?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Now, what happens at interview weekend? Obviously, interviews, but lots of other things happen. You're there for 4 days, like John B. Irvin, okay? And several other ones are 2 days. Some are 1 day, some are 2, some are 3, some are 4. All kinds of things happen. For one, a lot of times that's the first time people are visiting, so they're getting the tour, info session, stuff like that. Lots of panels. You can have things like class days, typically overnight, staying in the dorm. But then there can be all kinds of different things. There can be leisure fun activities like bowling and things like that, socials. But then they can have group activities as well, faculty meetings. So they're all structured a little differently. But I always tell somebody when they apply to school and they let me know, hey, I got this notice that I've been invited to interview weekend. I'm like, you know what that means, right? I said, do you think you're getting rejected? Like, you are getting admitted. This is an indication that not only you're getting admitted, but you're one of the stronger apps in the pool. But I always say this to people. If you are getting invited to an interview weekend and you're flying halfway across the country and you are very excited about that college, and now you apply, but you don't get the merit scholarship, will you be more inclined or less inclined to go to the school? And what do you think the answer is, Anika?
I mean, obviously, you would be more inclined if you get the money.
No, right. But I asked the opposite. What if you don't get it?
Oh, well, shoot. No, I'm not coming to y'all.
Yeah, because you got my hopes up.
Right.
And now I flew halfway across the country, or I drove 6 hours or whatever. So colleges are mindful of that. So most of them, the way they're structured is if you don't get the big enchilada, you are still getting the consolation prize. So it might be an opportunity to interview for 20, 30,000 full tuition, something like that. But for everybody that comes, they're still getting like enough money to make it worth your time to go.
Okay.
And that's only smart on their part, right? Because these are their top students. Why would you want to set them up only to decrease your chances?
Right.
So normally we're definitely talking thousands, not hundreds. And whether it's 5, 10, 15 or whatever, you're getting something just for your time if you go through the process. Okay. That's how most of them are set up.
Makes sense. And I'm going to tell you what would be, oh my God, the best interview ever, Mark. If you brought that student in that just won the award at WashU and have her interview. Like, I would love to hear how that process went for her.
So here's the thing. Because
I do agree that would be great, but because of this year, it was like done on like Zoom video, you know?
Oh,
So
yes,
this is so different this year because they couldn't do their whole 4-day program. So
okay.
I think doing that would make sense.
When they're back physically together, like
Correct.
Somebody to go through the physical process.
I mean, I could take one of my students as one in the past and bring them on.
Well, yeah, do that.
I certainly could do
that.
that.
Be awesome.
That would be no problem. Or we could just wait till we get somebody new. Hopefully we're back to normal next year and we could, make it happen fresh and new. So, but I will absolutely note that you think that would be a great idea. And I think our listeners would like that as well.
And not hopefully when we're back to normal, Mark. When
I
we're back to normal in the next few months.
I know. I can't be negative net over here.
COVID off the brain.
Yes. Well, it's not going to happen in this next segment. You're ready to transition to our bonus segment?
I am.
Anika and I are so grateful for everyone who has financially supported our podcast. It allows us to pay our staff and cover our other auxiliary expenses involved in having a weekly professional podcast.
At the start of every month, we're going to start sending a special gift to anyone who financially supports your college-bound kid.
I will be sending our donors this bonus content once a month directly to your email. The bonus content will be between 10 to 15 minutes in length. Usually it will be a college-related topic that I'm passionate about. Occasionally, it'll be another bonus hot topic in the news segment. Sometimes it'll be an answer to a question that one of our listeners submits to us via email.
And you'll receive these monthly audio blogs for a gift of any amount. We know that $5,000 to one person is $5 to someone else, and we don't want your budget to be a hindrance to you receiving this additional bonus content. So if you want to support our show, just go to yourcollegeboundkid.com and click the donate button. And if you've already financially supported our podcast, you will automatically start receiving this bonus content via your email.
This bonus content is our way of letting our financial supporters know in a tangible way how much we appreciate you. And if you have any questions at all about our monthly bonus content, just send your questions our way. That's to questions@yourcollegeboundkid.com. Once again, questions@yourcollegeboundkid.com.
All right. So this week we got some bonus content and you know what it's about, unfortunately, but we got to cover it. So Mark, what you're going to talk about with us is how COVID-19 may have changed standardized testing that would have some very long-term consequences. Goodness. We'll start. Just give it to us.
Yeah, this one may be one that a lot of people, including you, Anika, may absolutely love. This may be one of the best things coming out of COVID-19, depending on your perspective. Okay. And, you remember, you and I did a breaking in the news when Chicago went test optional, right? About a year and a half ago, maybe almost 2 years now. Well, what has happened in the last 10 days or 2 weeks to schools going test optional is breathtaking. It's breathtaking. How many schools have gone test optional? How many designer schools have gone test optional? And so what I'm going to do is quickly recap what's going on. And then that's going to be completely factual, my recap. This is all completely true. Then I'm going to do a little conjecture and speculate what I actually think is going to be the long-term consequences. And I think it's very, very, very significant. I think there's a really good chance that standardized testing will never be the same ever again post-COVID. And I'll tell you why, but I'll get to that in a sec. So let's put the changes in 3 buckets, Anika.
Okay.
There are the schools that have gone test optional only for this year, a little bit of a trial. Let's see what happens. This is a unique year. And one of them is Boston University. Once again, this is a designer. This is a brand name. Boston, wasn't maybe a decade ago, but it has become that. So Boston University announced that it will go test optional for those applying in the fall of 2021 or the spring of 22, but only those 2 semesters. BU cited the difficulty for students having to take the SAT or the ACT. And here's a quote from Kelly Walter, the Associate VP, Enrollment and Dean of Admissions. This is a 1-year adoption of the policy, but we will review it next spring. We are responding to the shifting landscape with juniors in high school not being able to access testing, and we want to be flexible. So that's Boston University. So they're this is a 1-year thing. I guess you could call it 1.5 if you want to count spring of 2020. Spring of 22 students. Mm-hmm. So that's one approach. Now the big enchilada. The University of California's 9 schools.
We said that, right?
Well, we were predicting that they were going to go test optional earlier when they were evaluating it.
Just sped up.
And then, and then a report came out from the faculty review saying, we are recommending that we stick with testing. And then COVID-19 hit and all hell broke out.
Oh, wow.
So the University of California, March 31st, said they will implement temporary measures to relax undergraduate admission requirements for students looking to enroll in the fall of 2020 and future years as applicable. These measures will help mitigate some of the extraordinary challenges students and parents face in the midst of COVID-19. Now, here's an actual quote. It says, we want to alleviate the tremendous disruption and anxiety that is already overwhelming prospective students due to COVID-19, said John Perez, chair of the Board of Regents. By removing artificial barriers and decreased stressors, including suspending the use of the SAT for this unprecedented moment in time, we hope there will be less worry for our future students. And then one more quote came from Janet Napolitano as well in the chancellor role. So she said, COVID-19 outbreak is a disaster of historic proportions, disrupting every aspect of our lives, including education for high school students. And went on to say the university's flexibility at this crucial time will ensure students aiming for UC get a full and fair shot. So I'm not going to go into all of this. They also implemented 5 other changes that were rather significant as well, Anika, besides just, ACT, SAT. But we're focusing on SAT, ACT right now. So we'll keep our focus there so we don't get too sidetracked. But when I say this is as big as it gets, a lot of people may not know this, but Anika, do you remember when the SAT was out of 2,400 for a stretch?
Vaguely.
Well, when Jalen took the test, it was out of 2,400. Well, you know what? He took the ACT.
ACT, yeah. So I
wonder you don't remember.
ACT land, yeah.
So basically, from 2005 to 2016, the test was out of 2,400. They had a mandatory writing section out of 800, in addition to the verbal and the math. And the reason why they did that was the University of California threatened to walk and drop the test unless they started emphasizing writing more. That's the power that they have. Like, it can't get any bigger than this. And just to put this in perspective, this is something I've actually never shared before. So which college or colleges, Anika, do you think get the most applications in the country every year?
Well, the ones that are test optional, right?
Actually not.
Really?
The ones that get the most applications in the country, the 6 schools, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 that get the most applications are all the University of California schools.
Oh.
All 6 of them. So there are 9 schools within the university, in what we call the UCs.
Okay.
The 6th most applications, this is 2018 data, is the University of California at Davis. They had over 70,000 applications.
Ooh.
The 5th most in the country, University of California, Santa Barbara, 81,000. The 4th most, UC Berkeley, 85,000. The 3rd most in the country, UC Irvine, 85,000. 2nd most, UC San Diego, 88,000. And then Los Angeles, best known as UCLA, 102,000. So the 6 most applications in the country are all in the UCs. So this is how big of a deal this is.
Okay.
And then the other 3 UCs, by the way, UC Merced, Santa Cruz, and Riverside, they also get a boatload. So we're talking about the colleges with the most applications in the country just said, we're not requiring it for this year. All right. So that's group number 1, the ones that are doing it just for this year. Next group.
Wait. Yeah. Before you go on, Mark. So
Sure.
let me ask you a couple questions about this. So
Sure.
this isn't, we were speculating about California, but obviously
Correct.
COVID, shifted that.
Yep.
So 2 things. Well, first of all, I don't envy the admission staff that's got to go through all those darn applications. That's number 1. But the main question is, how they use the SAT, they use the scores to do sometimes merit scholarships. We went through that, how
Right.
even though there's tests, you don't have to have the scores to apply, but you still have to, if you're trying to apply for certain programs or whatever.
Yeah.
So is that all gone too? Like even in the schools that are test optional right now, that were already test optional, like are they doing away with their stuff too because of that?
So it's so funny. I was going to talk about that a little bit later when I get into speculating in the future.
Okay.
But I'll just say it's case by case for now. That's going to depend on the school. You'll see in most cases, there's still testing is still going to help you with merit scholarships.
Okay.
But there are some exceptions. The simple answer is it's school by school. But in most cases, testing still comes into play for most merit scholarships.
And so the second quick question is, do you think those, like from 70,000 applications, you think they're going to get even more than that? I mean, like double or triple or something?
Well, here's the unique thing about the UCs. First of all, California is humongous compared to every other state.
Right.
Secondly, there's a UC app, right? So when you're on the UC app, it's easy to apply to multiple schools off the UC app.
Mm-hmm.
The process is simple. Like the way the Common App, you can apply to a bunch of schools. It's even easier to use the UC app to apply to multiple schools simultaneously.
I just wonder if that's going to make it harder to get into. Like, does that make it more competitive?
Well, in general, going test optional does make it harder to get into.
Right.
That's absolutely a general trend. That's one of the reasons why schools do it.
Mm-hmm.
Is to get more applications and to increase their selectivity and to be able to have more kids to select from.
Okay.
So in general, absolutely, it's been proven to be an effective way of increasing your applications.
Okay.
Did that answer it?
Yeah, you did.
All right. So now let's look at two schools that say due to COVID, they are going to go test optional, but they're not doing it for 1 year and they're not committing to do it forever, but they're going to do a 3-year study on it. So they're going to test optional for 3 years and they want to look at the data. So guess what is the first school of the two I'm going to name, Anika? It's in North Carolina and it starts with a D.
Not Duke.
Not yet, but Davidson.
Oh, really?
Davidson announced the last day of March they are going test optional for 3 years.
Oh.
3 years as Chris Gruber came out with the statement in light of, in light of COVID and all the stresses and strains it's putting on students. Davidson thinks this is an excellent time to relieve students of the anxiety and to conduct a 3-year study. Do we feel we can make the same type of admissions decisions without it? I actually think that's a smart move. If I was an admission director, I think I would do that. I think I would, 1 year is not enough to probably accumulate enough information to really be able to compare it, but 3 years is. So I think that's a really smart move on Davidson's part. I commend them for it. I mean, you can see these are brand name schools that are doing this.
Right.
And I mentioned that not to be status conscious, but only it's just a fact. The more schools that are prestigious do this, the more it influences others.
Okay.
Because they're like, hey, if they can do it, but they're really difficult decisions they have to make, then why can't others, right? So it has a more of a galvanizing effect when you see now you got the UC Berkeleys and the UCLAs and San Diego's, UCSDs and the Davidsons. And the next one is Boston University. And here's another prestigious school that also is doing the 3-year study. And that's Tufts University, another very prestigious school in Boston. So, yeah, absolutely. So Tufts as well did the same thing. Here's a quote from J.T. Duck, Dean of Admissions at Tufts. He wrote a blog actually about the change. And he said, why now? Why now? He said, while the COVID-19's pandemic impact on the SAT and AC testing opportunities contributed to the urgency of this policy, this decision aligns with our ongoing efforts to critically examine our policies and promote maximum access to a Tufts education for high-achieving students of all backgrounds and identities from across the country and around the world. So what you typically get with the 3-year ones, the Davidsons and the Tufts, Anika, these are people that clearly were internally having the conversation beforehand is, do we want to do this? And now this gave an opportunity to do something that they were probably already having conversations about, ahead of time. Any comments?
Well, Davidson, I can't be mad at you.
I told you this might be actually something good about COVID.
Well, I'm just saying. You remember I said if my child had to go through all that, then they changed. I was going to be not happy. But
you did say, yeah.
Not gonna flip a table over on you on this
and all
one.
that stress that Jaden went through, and now he's gone. And
my God, but it's
hey,
I'm over it.
Celebrate the future, students, Anika.
Okay,
past is the
students.
past. Let it go.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that was a weak congratulations. It was like a grudging congratulations.
I'm going to get over it in about 5 minutes. Yeah, it's all good. Okay. No, COVID is saving. Clearly, COVID is saving this. I cannot be mad because of this pandemic that we're in. So, okay, get a pass.
All right, and then we have the next group. And these are the schools that have now permanently announced that, they'll say, COVID was the impetus for us to make the call, but we were already leaning in that direction anyway. And here we have another designer school, Case Western in Cleveland. Case Western Reserve, very, very prestigious school. I did a college spotlight on them. Here's the quote. Case Western Reserve in Cleveland was one of the earliest schools to use the coronavirus as a catalyst for change. Rick Bischoff, who oversees enrollment, told NPR last week that the school had been discussing going test optional, in part because of how it has been shown to improve equity. Bischoff and Case Western Reserve were planning to make a final decision in a year or so, but the disruptions from the coronavirus outbreak moved that decision up. Understanding how much turmoil this is injecting into the process is just so clearly, in our view, the right thing to do. So that's another school that when they move, a lot of people start thinking, if they can do it, how are we going to compete against them if they're doing it? Now, it's not only them. I'm going to list a bunch more and then make a comment, and we'll transition into some things I want to share. So Newberry in South Carolina said, we're test optional now, and we're not changing. Franklin in Indiana, they joined Case Western and said, we're going to test. This is all in the last 7 to 10 days, Anika. We're going test optional, and we're not changing. Cumberland in Tennessee, test optional forever. Well, for the foreseeable future. Everyone will say forever. Drury in Missouri, same thing. And then another brand name school, Scripps, part of the Claremont Colleges in California, permanently, I keep saying permanently, for the foreseeable future, we're test optional. All of this stuff has come out in like the last, 2 weeks. And here we go. Oregon and Oregon State. Okay. Oregon's the flagship. Okay. Now every single public college in Oregon is test optional.
Wow.
So do you see all the change? You see why I had to do an audible and do a podcast, do a segment on this?
Right. And what is the College Board? What are they? Are they somewhere drinking right now? Like, what is going on?
You know what? I'm so glad you said that. What a segue. Because everybody's under pressure right now. Colleges are under enormous pressure to enroll their class. But there's somebody shaking in their boots more than the colleges.
Right.
It's the ACT and the College Board. I mean, the College Board is a $1.1 billion organization. And they fuel their budget by their tests. And of course, they've announced May's canceled. ACT's announced that April was canceled. I don't see June tests coming. Maybe I'm wrong. They might push it to July because they don't have a July administration. But I'd be surprised. You can't just announce a June test the day before. Like, you have to start announcing these things around now, because of people's plans.
Right.
So, I can't even imagine what they're going through.
Jeez.
So here are my thoughts. That's all the facts, everything I shared. Now I'm going to just engage in a little conjecture and some speculation. Here's where I think this is going. I don't think the SAT and the ACT will ever be the same in terms of the amount of influence that they've had in the college admissions process. And especially if the SAT cancels that June administration. But even if it doesn't, why do you think I would say that, Anika?
Well, people, they took the leap. It seems like it'll be hard to come back, to say, we're all going to go back to not being test optional after this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I want to say. So what happens if you look at the history, remember now, Bowdoin is celebrating 51 years of being test optional. They're the first one to do it. You see the history of the 1,000+ schools that have gotten test optional. They don't go back.
Right.
They don't go back because what happens is they learn how to make excellent, astute, insightful decisions, and they're able to enroll a class that has similar retention levels, similar grade point averages, similar graduation levels. It takes more work. And here's the thing. Students love it. They love it.
I'm sure.
They love it. And right now, when you look at the pressure that colleges are under to attract students, Dave and I in the news and we talked about how 1 out of every 6 students that was planning on going to the college in the fall, based on a new study that was done of almost 500 people, says they're not going to do it now. And by the way, I never said that when Dave and I discussed this, but that study came out in late March. So it may be even worse now. 1 in 6 that was planning on going said now they're not. Colleges are freaking out. And so colleges are under so much pressure to remove barriers. They're doing things like getting rid of deposits and decreasing deposits. You know, in fact, Franklin, they went test optional. At the same time, they also said, guess what? In order to hold your spot, you can deposit 100 instead of 200 right now. And colleges are doing that, and they're even removing deposits. So students love it. And so it's going to be very, very difficult to go back. Then you have the influence of the flagships, especially the UCs. All those 9 UCs, the 6 of them getting the most applications in the country. Of course, they're the ones that said they're only doing it for a year. But I think chances are quite good. If I was a betting person, I would bet that they'll continue with it. But we'll see. Now, that will play a role in how much we see the demise of the SAT and the ACT as well, is what the UCs do because of the influence those 9 colleges have.
Right.
But when you see prestigious schools going like this, it's just a foregone conclusion that there's going to be a whole domino effect of other schools coming behind them. So this is just the tip of the iceberg of what's going to happen. It's inevitable that many more will fall. You know, look at what happened with subject tests. Anika, when you and I started the podcast, there were 27 schools requiring that test. We kept having to say, now there's 19, now there's 17, now there's 13. Then there was 3. And then just last week, I mean, just this year, MIT, they were so adamant we are not changing when they were down to 3. Now they've changed that quickly. That's what, so the more these schools do it, the more it puts pressure on their competition.
Ooh-wee.
You know, if Cal Berkeley can do it, why can't you? You know, if Davidson can do it, if Boston University can do it, if Case Western Reserve, if Tufts can do it, why can't you? It puts incredible pressure. And when you look at this in the context right now, when schools are really struggling, even the wealthy ones, over this COVID-19 and the financial implications, I just see many, many more coming because right now schools are trying to remove every barrier they can to get students involved. And the more schools do it, the more it makes the others who aren't doing it look insensitive.
Wow.
You know, and so that's where I see things going. Now, what do I think? Do I think in my lifetime we'll see the ACT or the SAT become completely obsolete? No. I think what you're going to see is, well, first of all, individual schools are going to differ in how they do it, right? Obviously, that's going to happen. We know that. I think we're going to see a lot more recommendations, not required, like we recommend it, but we don't require it. Right now, I can build an amazing college list off of test optional schools. The more that's the case, the more people will just literally not apply. I can already pick a bunch of really good schools without the test score.
Wow.
So, you know, the more that happens, the more it puts pressure on schools to follow suit. I do think we'll continue to see what you mentioned earlier, scholarships. For scholarships, we look at the tests. I think we're a long ways away from seeing that go. And I think it's important to say something that you and I talked about once before. Remember when we said test optional doesn't mean easier to get into?
Right.
Yes, this does not mean they're easier to get into.
Right.
It just means that they're going to put more focus on other aspects. And when we had Idan Shahar on for his interview, he really articulately pointed this out. Okay? That everyone thinks the test is the culprit for all the stress. It's not the test. It's how hard these schools are to get into. It's the few slots. So the shift will just go to something like your rigor. And there'll be incredible pressure on people to take APs and IBs, which is equally stressful, especially if you're not the kind of student that can do well in those courses. So I don't want to make it sound like this is all peaches and cream. It's just going to shift the focus to other things.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts?
Well, the way you explain that pressure on the schools kind of explains these emails I've been getting.
Yeah, I'm sure. Tell me about the emails.
Well, Janaea, one of her top schools, by the way, who she declined because they kept, messenger her message. She said, okay, well, I've accepted whatever somewhere else. So they sent me an email last week saying, please log into your child's portal. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And then she got like a $12,000 merit scholarship from one of her other schools. It was just like, oh my God, they are. Yeah, I can feel it. I see it and I feel it now.
When I started out yesterday with Dave, when I did my admissions tip, I talked about this. I say, you may want to wait around until the very end if money's a factor, because schools are now throwing money at kids.
Oh, man.
They're throwing money at kids because they're scared that they're not going to have their class.
Yep.
You know?
Clearly.
And so if we have to do an aggressive tuition discount to get some, especially high flyers that they really want. So you're experiencing it right now because you got a senior and you can tell the schools are up in the ante in terms of how they're recruiting Naya.
They are trying hard. I mean, and literally she told, I said, Janae, you need to message them and say you have, accepted somewhere else. And she did that. And they're still coming back. I don't know if it's a disconnect in their systems or whatever, but it's just, I can imagine how tough it is.
So think about it. Colleges can't only think about the senior class. They also have to think about the juniors. So think like the juniors right now are saying, are going to be asking them, are you going to go test optional? Because the other schools I'm applying to are going test optional. And if you're a school and you're looking at your competition and they're doing it, and especially if they have more cachet and more brand name than you, it's already hard to beat them off prestige. And now they're removing barriers. Like that puts incredible pressure on other schools that's why I think we've just seen the tip of the iceberg. But for a 10-day period for you to get Tufts and Davidson and Boston University and Case Western Reserve and Oregon State and all the UCs, not to mention Scripps and Drury and Cumberland, Franklin, and Newberry, that's a lot of schools. There's 17, and I didn't even mention those 17.
All right. Wow.
So that's why this is very, very, very significant. And
I feel for him too. I mean, it's kind of funny a little bit, but it's really not. I mean, I feel kind of, I can't imagine. I just can't imagine. So best wishes to all of them.
Well, listen, Anika, you go get that fishing pole and you get John and you get Naya and you go catch a big bass or
I've only gotten 3 text messages. Oh, what's going on?
All right.
Yes.
Time to go fishing and go for your husband's birthday. Okay?
Thank you.
Friends, I think you heard my passion in that last segment. That's because I know of no other change in college admissions that is so fundamental and foundational in the 3 years we've been doing the podcast than the changes that are happening with the ACT and the SAT that I see being changes that will eventually be implemented in a wide-scale manner. Well, no longer had we finished recording that episode. Anika and I did our segment on Sunday, April 5th. Then today, on April 6th, just to show you how quickly this is picking up momentum, several more dominoes fell. Pomona, one of the most competitive schools in the country, announced, and this is from Seth Allen, their VP of Strategy and Dean of Admissions at Pomona, given the amount of uncertainty and anxiety in the world as we deal with COVID-19 crisis, the right thing to do for our students who are applying next year will be to go test optional for 1 year. Vassar College also made an announcement. Sonia Smith, Dean of Admissions and Student Aid, said there are inherent inequities in standardized testing that have long been recognized by educators. We believe our new policy aligns us with our core values of access. Does that sound like they're going to go back and change? Rhodes College is implementing the same approach Davidson and Tufts is. 3-year experiment. And I don't even know if this will be made public by the time you hear this on Thursday, April 9th. But one of my former students who's a graduate of Williams, who's highly connected to what's going on there, he reached out to me today and said he received an official email saying Williams College will be going test optional next year. These are some of the most prestigious schools in the country. And if they go test optional, you can expect many more dominoes to fall.
All right. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the interview that we had with Taylor King last week. And it's very timely because Taylor's talking about the regional public. And one of the things about the regional public that's really attractive is cost. And he's going to get more into that today. And while Columbus State, where he works, offers some really marquee programs, which he'll talk about today, that are worth traveling nationally and internationally for, we also want you to look at your regional publics in your state if cost is a concern for you, because that's where a lot of the bargains are found. So I hope you enjoy part 2 with Taylor King.
And now, this week's interview with a special guest.
Well, that's great. And, I have a lot more questions for you, but let's actually transition and focus specifically on Columbus State so that, a lot of your answers can be CSU focused moving forward. Why don't we start by having you kind of just give the 3-minute elevator speech or pitch, as they say. You've been there now over a decade, so must be some good things happening there, or you wouldn't be staying. So just give our listeners, and we have listeners in 94 countries and 50 states all over the place. Tell us about Columbus State. A lot of our listeners have never heard of the school.
Sure. So again, we're Columbus State University. We are in beautiful and historic Columbus, Georgia. Columbus is one of the 3 largest cities here in the state of Georgia. And so we have about 100 different academic programs. Again, the majority of those are undergraduate. We have about 7,800 students total. And so not an extremely huge population, not a small population. It truly is a diverse population of students. So if you look at where our students are coming from, it's every county in Georgia, half the counties in Alabama, about 30 states and 40 countries. The vast majority of those are in-state Georgia residents. With that, we have 2 campuses in Columbus. That makes us really unique. So we have a very traditional main campus, which is very geographically centered. When you think of that traditional collegiate experience on a college campus, you think of a clock tower and rolling greens and the residence halls and the giant library, athletic facilities. That's our main campus. Very traditional feeling. Not too old. It's been, we established that campus in the early 1960s, but we've continued to upgrade and improve that campus as the decades have gone on. We also offer what's called River Park campus. And River Park is a little bit different than your traditional college campus. And so it's a more of an urban or a city campus, fully integrated into Uptown Columbus. Uptown is just a beautiful and historic area with most of those, really unique to Columbus restaurants. And so the campus that we have there's residence halls, there's dining facilities, there's academic spaces, but it's all blended in within the Uptown area. And so students have the opportunity to live in Uptown, shop in Uptown, hang out in Uptown. We have a shuttle system that runs between the 2. And so you will have classes on both campuses. And so we offer a shuttle service that goes between the 2 every 20 minutes throughout the day. And so it's really a great opportunity for students that want to be in a different environment. Columbus, like I said, is one of the 3 largest cities in Georgia. So there's things to do on campus. There's things to do off campus. And that really lends itself for our students to have a great life, not just academically, but socially. One thing that we like to ask all of our students is not necessarily what they want to be, but who they want to be. And we really push that who element just because we feel that's a more important question than just the what. And we have the resources available in our city to plug students into exactly who they want to become and plug them in with the right people to help them get there.
That's great. Let's talk a little bit more about Columbus. I know you said 3rd biggest, I guess, Augusta being 2nd. The 2 of you are probably really close in size, right?
Yeah, we go back and forth every other year between who's number 2, and you would think that it's the biggest deal in the world because 2nd biggest sounds so much better than 3rd biggest, but really the numbers are so close, it's not a big deal.
And you're both around 200,000, if I remember correctly. Is that pretty close to population?
That's correct. Yeah, absolutely.
So where in relation, say, to an Atlanta is a Columbus, just drive-wise, and anything else that sort of Columbus is kind of known for? Like, how would you describe the city of Columbus?
Right. So Columbus, Georgia is 100 miles southwest of Atlanta. So you can get from Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, which is the main airport in Atlanta, to Columbus in about an hour and a half. It's a beautiful drive, all interstate, which is wonderful for us. And so Columbus is known for a few different things. Initially, it was known as a military town. Fort Benning, which is a large Army installation, is based in Columbus. And so that's really what Columbus was known for the longest time, being that military town. But Aflac Insurance, which everyone knows, the Aflac duck and that brand. Yeah. And so that's based in Columbus. The second C or the C at the end of Aflac is for Columbus, which is really cool. And so there's a lot of opportunities for our students to explore, Aflac and all that they bring to the table, because it's a huge part of our community. The other thing that's really putting Columbus on the map the past few years is the whitewater rafting that we have running through the city. And so we are right on the border. The Chattahoochee River separates us from Alabama, and the river was returned to its natural state just a few years ago. And with that, it brought urban whitewater rafting. And so whereas most times when you go whitewater rafting, there's going to be, you're out in the middle of the woods, it's very rural, very desolate. That's not the case here in Columbus. And so you can get off the rapids, come into the middle of town, which is just 2 blocks away, eat, dine, hang out, socialize, go out and have nightlife options, all that stuff within just steps of the Rapids. The other thing that the Rapids do and have created is an opportunity for people to not just kayak, canoe, raft, but they can freshwater surf as well, which is really cool. So we've hosted the national in freshwater surfing championships a couple of times in Columbus. And so you'll see people walking around with their surfboards and you're like, what in the world? But they're going to surf on the Chattahoochee River, which is pretty cool.
That is cool. And I will, in full disclosure, I've been to Columbus State several times. Very impressive school. And a lot of students love city. And you guys offer that with your urban campus. You're big enough to provide pretty good breadth of programs, but yet not so big that students get lost. And while it's true that you are catered more to the regional area in your area. So I know a lot of students like the urban aspect that you provide, but yet they still don't want something that's so big, like a New York City kind of thing. Or sometimes even Atlanta can be overwhelming. And so I really feel there's a place for a school like you, not just for Georgia residents or local neighboring states like Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina. I know that's where you draw a lot of your students from. But one thing that's impressed me is that you have some marquee programs that a student from California, Denver, Jersey, or anywhere in the country, I think would be really impressed with. So can you talk to us about maybe 3 or 4 of your top programs and give us some details about what makes these programs exceptionally strong?
Sure. So when you look at Columbus State and you understand what we're most known for, that would be music. Our School of Music, the Schwab School of Music, is not just known here in Georgia or in the Southeast, but truly known in the world of music nationally and internationally. Quite a few years ago, we had some great benefactors that just wanted to emphasize the arts on our campus. And so music it's the gem in our crown. And music is well known. We draw just as many students internationally as we do locally for our School of Music. And so through the abilities of the classroom spaces that we offer, the faculty that we attract, the scholarship money that we offer for music, there's more scholarship money for music than every other major combined. It's that big of a deal on our campus. And so students that, are looking to study music and not necessarily go to a conservatory can come to Columbus State. And there's great benefits to that. One, we're public. And so that keeps the cost really low. And so if you do have a balance after you receive a scholarship, your costs are going to be very minimal. The other thing is there you get the interaction of being with students within other majors. And so there's a lot of opportunities to work alongside students from every other major, which is really cool. And so we emphasize that, a lot of collaboration on our campus. And so that's what's great with our School of Music is those students can collaborate with anyone. Other programs that were really marquee, one we just started this year is robotics engineering. We know that a lot of schools have robotics, but they don't necessarily have the engineering aspect of that. So we looked at the needs here in Georgia, and there is no robotics engineering degree. And so we said, hey, let's be the first. And so there's a lot of opportunities there. We already have partnerships with Kia Motors, Pratt Whitney, Fort Benning. And so really taking not just the idea of implementing robots, but from the initial startup through implementation into all the way through the lifespan of that robot and automation. And so we are the first school in Georgia to offer that robotics engineering program. We offer it at the undergraduate and graduate level, which is really exciting. And so we're super thrilled to be able to offer that. It's our first step into the engineering world. And so we're really excited to see where that's going to take our university. Other programs that are popular, things like education, nursing, computer science are all extremely popular programs. 2 programs that we've started that are really different and they're getting a lot of national recognition are going to be what we call our Nexus degrees. And Nexus degrees are not your traditional associate degrees. They're not bachelor's degrees. They're a blend between the two. And so a Nexus degree is guaranteed internship. It has upper division hours as well as lower division hours, but it's completed in 2 years. And so we offer those in cybersecurity and in film, which are both huge industries here in Georgia and nationally. And so we want to be able to get people through the educational experience, get them a credential so they can get into the workforce and not have to do it in 4 years. And so the state of Georgia has started this initiative, the university system has. And so we were the first school to have these programs, and they started this year, and they are just taking off. So it's not like, again, it's not an AA or an AS or a BA or a BS. I guess it's going to be an NS. So we'll see. I'm not sure how exactly they're labeling that with accreditation, but it is the newest credential in the country since the 1880s. So very excited about being the first school to offer that as well.
Yeah, a lot of our listeners probably don't know this, but Georgia's really becoming the film capital of the country. You know, while LA, I know, is still producing more TV shows, Georgia actually produced more films last year than Los Angeles. And there's some huge tax incentives that companies get to start films here. And I know as a resident of the state, I feel like every time I drive around the corner, you know, the highways blocked off because they're filming another movie around the corner from my house.
That's right.
You know?
Yes, all the time. I mean, every city in Georgia has got a claim to fame in the film industry now.
Yeah. And I noticed that, you know, all the schools are trying to really ramp their programs up because of the demand. And then, of course, cybersecurity, as you mentioned, what a booming field. Talk about a place where very easy to get jobs when you're coming out with cybersecurity background.
Let's take a break to learn about Mark's recommended resource for the week.
Our recommended resource for episode 115 is the best document you will find anywhere on helping you to know what your chances are of getting off the wait list if you're waitlisted by a college that you're interested in. Now, last week, I shared a document by a couple of consultants in the consultant group that I am in. It's a group called HECA, which stands for the Higher Education Consultant Association. And we do some training and provide the highest standards of ethics for educational consultants. Now, these consultants, Jenny Kent and Jeff Levy, assembled the common data set information on merit scholarships last week. Well, now they've taken the common data set information and they have compiled an extremely helpful list of waitlist data for specific colleges. Now, you're thinking, waitlist data? Why is that important? Well, this week I was talking to one of my clients who was waitlisted at Dartmouth. He wanted to know whether he should stay on the waitlist and how he can increase his chance of getting off the waitlist. And my recommendation to him was to move on. Love the school that love you back. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, Stucker, why are you being so negative? Well, I consulted this document I'm describing to you here, and it showed in 2017, Dartmouth waitlisted 2,021 students. In 2018, they waitlisted 1,925 students. And in 2019, they waitlisted 2,151 students. That's an average of 2,032 a year, or 6,097 over 3 years. And guess how many students they admitted from their waitlist? A donut, a bagel. 0 in 2017, 0 in 2018, 0 in 2019. That is 0 out of 6,097. Now, in other instances, I will passionately encourage a student to work the wait list. But the starting point is the data. You no longer have to look up each school individually in the common data set. A couple consultants did the tedious work of adding up all those numbers and putting them in a chart for us. The document will show you how many students were waitlisted, how many chose to stay on the wait list, and how many were eventually accepted off of the wait list. And it will show it to you for the last 3 years. So if you're a senior who's trying to figure out whether to stay on the wait list, use a data-driven approach by using this document. And we'll, of course, put this link in the show notes for you. Now return to the final part of my interview with Taylor King. Let's talk a little bit more about music.
Okay.
So I know your focus is more on the music performance and the music production side, as far as where you have your most heft and strength. Would you say it's more on the sort of vocal choral side, instrumental? Are there certain instruments? Go a little deeper into what makes your music program special.
So it's going to be vocal performance. It's going to be instrumental, all of the above. And the faculty that we have the opportunity to be anywhere. And so when you're looking at the Schwab School, No, it is nationally competitive. There is an audition-based process. And so it's going to be more of your classical studies and jazz studies that go along with that. Some great performance spaces that we offer. The Saunders Center for Music at Columbus State has 3 performance spaces. Legacy Hall, which is the predominant music space that we use, is just unbelievable. So if you Google Legacy Theater in the Saunders Center for the Schwab School, in any way that you want to Google that, you'll see one of the most beautiful performance spaces for collegiate music anywhere in the country. And so we're really blessed. There's a larger performance space that we use once or twice a year, the Bill Hort Theater, that is just excellent as well. But just the interaction that our students are getting with the faculty members and where they're going. So they're going to grad school all over the place. They're playing professionally, truly anywhere they want to around the globe, and different philharmonics and different symphonies, anywhere they want to be.
We have a very interesting audience, Taylor. We have some people that they've set aside the money for college, and they're prepared to go to the 80,000 type school, and they've got the money set and they're good to go. We've got others who are looking absolutely for that bargain, and they're like, "Look, I don't have that kind of money, or if I do, I don't believe I have to spend it on college with all the other costs in life." And so they're looking for something 50,000, 40,000, 30,000. We've said before that the regional publics are, come at a good price point, a good sticker point. Let's talk turkey. Talk to me what a student would be looking at, and let's focus on an out-of-state student here. What would they be looking at cost-wise to, you can maybe break those costs down for us as well.
Right. So tuition and fees for us run about $10,000 out of state per semester. So about $20,000 tuition and fees only for the year. With housing, you're looking about $5,600 for the year, and with a meal plan, about $4,000 for the year. So
about $30,000 for tuition, room and board, student fees, out of state, right?
About $30,000 out the door, everything.
Yeah, but even if you throw in books, transportation, personal miscellaneous supplies, you may be looking at 33. 35 max, maybe, if you're coming from the West Coast.
That's absolutely right. Yes, that's about the exact number. If you're looking at everything, even travel back and forth between home. And so still very affordable, very, very affordable, especially compared to our other parts of the country. And so that's where students that are coming to us from the Northeast, or students that come to us from out West, they see the total cost and they're amazed. That's the out-of-state cost, much less, for a lot of them, it would be less than their in-state cost. So we're really blessed there to have that low price point.
Yeah, because you can go, there's in-state schools, publics that hit you for that much. So this is great. And I want our listeners to know that. And also, you have some merit scholarships. Talk to us about your merit scholarship, what type of qualifications the student would need to get a merit scholarship, and how much money are we talking about there?
Sure. For our merit-based scholarships, we're looking for 3 different criteria. We're looking for your GPA, so we're looking for at least a 3.5 core GPA or above. We're looking for test scores of a 26 on the ACT or a 1200 SAT, or if you're in the top 10% of your class. And we add that top 10% because a lot of our students here in Georgia meet the GPA, but they may not meet the test scores, but they do meet that class rank percentage. And so we're looking for 2 of those 3 when it comes to merit-based scholarships. For in-state students, a lot of those scholarships range anywhere from $1,000 up to $5,000. There are a couple that are a little bit more. For our out-of-state students, that typically involves an out-of-state fee waiver to get you in-state cost. And so you're going from a cost of around $30,000 to a cost of around $17,000. And so there's a lot of opportunities to earn that out-of-state fee waiver with your merit-based scholarships here.
So repeat that. So what exactly would someone need to do to get the out-of-state waived and to qualify for the in-state program?
Right. So we have an application deadline, or a scholarship application deadline, of January 31st. So there's a separate application, and as well as the application for admission. And so we're looking for that application. We're looking for an academic core GPA of a 3.5 or above, an SAT score of a 1200, an ACT score of a 26, either one, or if you're in the top 10% of your class. And so if you meet that GPA test score or that class rank, you'll be invited to scholarship day. You'll go through an interview process, and with that, they'll determine how much money you're getting. And so for out-of-state students, that typically means an out-of-state fee waiver which if you get is about a $13,000 cost savings.
Yeah, you're starting to sound really affordable to a lot of families here.
Right. Yeah. So, like I said, when we have students that, our top states are Georgia and Alabama, and then really New York, we get quite a few students who are wanting to come from the Northeast to come down to the warm weather. They see some of our academic programs and they love it. And when they see our total cost, especially if they're able to get an out-of-state fee waiver, they really love us. So, and then a lot of them will come in and get in-state residency. They'll establish residency here in Georgia for a year, and then they're eligible for in-state tuition permanently, possibly the Hope Scholarship as well.
Sounding really good.
Next week in the news, we have a great article from Forbes magazine by Derek Newton on the 5 ways COVID-19 will impact college enrollment. Mark and Anika will discuss Chapter 116. What is need-based college aid and how do I get it? Our question will be, how can we tell if a private college has decent financial health? We will be in the final part of our interview with Taylor King, and our college spotlight will be going back to California for Chapman University.
Friends, as promised, our college spotlight today is Ringling College of Art and Design. And we got you with this one, Dave. It's one you hadn't heard of, isn't it?
I have not heard of that one.
And most people haven't. So Ringling is a very specialized school. Once again, Dave and I, we want to reflect the diversity of colleges in America and even in the world and showcase all types of schools. So a little bit about Ringling. Ringling's in Sarasota. So Sarasota's a little more than 60,000 residents, suburban Tampa, St. Pete area. Beautiful, beautiful beaches. It's considered Central Florida, the western part of Florida, 2.5 hours from Orlando, an hour south of Tampa. And I'm biased to where the beach is over on that side. As someone who goes to Florida quite a bit, they're the best I've seen really almost anywhere in the world. They can compete as far as sand quality and water. But we're talking about school here, not vacation. You can see I'm starting to think about taking a little vacation here. Well, those of you who don't know, Dave and I, we get together with all of our families and do a big family reunion every so often. I'm already starting to plan our next one for 2021 or 2022. And we're talking about maybe heading to these beaches over this area. So I'm starting to, my mind is going beach here on us, but let's come back to Ringling. So it's nice. Sarasota has its own airport, so that's pretty cool. Very tropical in that area. The school was established in 1931. It was a remote branch of Southern College at the time. So it's almost 100 years old. The name has changed quite a few times. 71% of students live on campus, 29% off. Ringling has 14 majors, and every one of the majors is really good and incredibly focused. So this is a very specialized school. It's actually the first time we brought you an art and design school. So I'll tell you the majors. Computer animation. This is interactive technology, video graphics, special effects, cinematography and film, video production, creative writing, entertainment design, fine arts, studio arts, game art, graphic design, illustration, motion design, photography and imaging, virtual reality and development, visual studies, and the business of art and design. So all 14 of these programs would be a BFA, which is a Bachelor of Fine Arts, except for the business of art and design and visual studies, which would be BAs. This is an undergraduate focused institution. And really the only difference between the Bachelor of Fine Arts and the BA is the studio component. You'll be working on multiple areas rather than just concentrating on one. You can do lots of combinations. You can combine film with creative writing, with scripts, with narrative building. Something you should know, though, about the 3D computer animation is it is the only program they offer with an actual application deadline of January 15th. All of the other programs are rolling admissions. And the 3D computer animation is one of their marquee programs, some most competitive program to get into that they offer. If you're new here, Dave, do you want to take a shot explaining what rolling admissions is to our listeners if they're new?
Oh, yes. Well, I know that because I employed in a lot of medical school admissions. It means that they admit their class in segments throughout the year. So they might start in September and admit a portion of the class then, and then in October, a portion of class then, and in January, another portion of the class. So not all the classes admitted all at once. It's split up throughout the year into segments. Is that correct?
Pretty much. The way I explain it is as applications roll on in, decisions roll on out.
Right.
So most of the time you can expect a decision, depending on the school, from 3 days to 8 weeks. When they're in their peak busier times, it'll be a little longer. If you want to getting in at an earlier time of the year before many apps come in, it can be really, really quick. It's different from regular admissions where all the applications pile up, and then there's explicit date where the notifications go out. And it's often confused with early action, which also can give you an early notification. But with early action, there still is a deadline, and there's still a precise time when decisions are released. With rolling admissions, though, the school typically will go rolling all the way up until they finish. Now, a lot of schools that have regular admissions, if they don't fill, which most schools don't, then they go to rolling after regular. So rolling actually is implied by most colleges, whether it's their main method or it's a secondary method. But even for most colleges that have regular admissions, what happens if they don't fill? They don't say, well, our regular deadline's over, so I guess we'll open 60 people under enrolled. No, they go to rolling until they fill. So with rolling, a school may be accepting in the summer, but you want to get it in early because it can be less competitive at the start. Now, they do automatic consideration for merit scholarships with your application as long as you meet the February 15th timeline. They're a Common App school, and their application process mostly focuses on 3 things. The Common App itself, and they do read all aspects of the Common App, extracurriculars, everything. The transcript, they do require a transcript, and they do look at that transcript closely. Average grade point average is 3.3. That's not a cutoff. It means they have students that are admitting above and below that. They do require 1 teacher recommendation. They will look at more if you submit more. Don't go crazy, okay? Don't want to be that person they're talking about in the office. This person sent 13 racks in. No, don't do that. But if you have like a second or a third that you think would present you in a favorable light, sure enough, go ahead and include that. And then a really, really, really big thing for them. Remember, this is a very, very, even amongst art schools, this is an incredibly concentrated, focused, hardworking, serious program. And I'll get more to that later. So what would you expect would be the third thing, Dave, that they require?
They want to see a sample of your art or your
You got it.
design.
Portfolio.
That's right.
So they're test optional. Don't have to worry about any ACT, SAT. They want to see the portfolio. Now, another thing to know about Ringling is Ringling does admit by major. So this is important. So, for example, if you're applying, you're not just applying to Ringling College, you're applying to the film school. And it's a very structured, intense program. This is not the kind of place that believes in doing 2 years of general studies and then 2 years in your major. No, you are all 4 years in your major, doing serious work in your major. They want you taking the summers off. They're not really offering full-time classes in the summer. They do have something amazing in the summer. I'll get to that in a second. Now, you can apply as an undecided app. Okay, they do allow that option. However, it's strongly not recommended because even if you apply undecided, before you enroll, you are going to have to select what major you're in, and they are going to do a portfolio review. A portfolio review is a huge part of the application process. So it's going to make it a lot harder for you to qualify for any of the scholarship money if you apply undecided, because they're not going to know. How do we evaluate you? Do we evaluate you compared to students who are applying, for creative writing or for film or the business of art and design? Or what about photography and imaging? Okay. How do we know? How do you compete with someone applying for computer animation? And so it really kind of works against you. But if you're not sure, you can initially apply that way. But before you enroll, you are going to have to declare. So that's something to know about. Now you wonder, how does this work? So let's say you're a film major. You submit your film project, and it could be on a phone. It could be photography. You can tell your story. They want to see. You can showcase your lighting. They want to see a writing sample. You could send in some script writing. So film students can even submit drawing even to supplement their portfolio. But mostly for film, it would be photography, film, and writing samples. Those would be the things that would be evaluating your portfolio. They're evaluating you. Now, something we haven't talked about that much on here, I think we did this a couple times. They use something called Slide Room. Ever heard of Slide Room, Dave?
No, what's Slide Room?
So Slide Room's a place for artists to display their work, and it's like synced to the Common App. So you can go and display everything through SlideRoom. And they recommend that you use the link from Common App, not slideroom.com, as your starting point. Now, they're looking for 10 to 20 pieces. They're a place that looks for quality over quantity. So if you've got 10 strong pieces, send a 10 in. They're not going to say, well, this person did 20, you did 10. No, 10 to 12 is fine. 15's fine. And you say, well, that's a lot. I wrote a 20-page paper. Like, how do I come up with another 20 to show my writing? They say, break it up. Break it up into part 1, 2, and 3. That's okay. You did a 12-minute film that took a lot of work. Break it up into segments. That can count as individual pieces. Another really strong program that they offer is something called motion design. What motion design does, it takes into consideration animation skills, graphic design, illustration, storyboarding, sound, stop motion, and it molds everything into one major. So you're not going to learn as much about animation in depth as the 3D computer animation students do. But anyone they say who's interested in animation should really look at their motion design program because it's fantastic. Now, for any design majors, your portfolio has a lot more flexibility in it. So you can do some general observation, some painting, some drawing, some sketching, some photography. But they have very, very strict portfolio requirements if you're interested in computer animation, illustration, or gaming. 100% of your observation or drawing has to be real life drawing. So figure studies. You can't draw off a Google photo. You can draw hands or feet or an animal, but live drawing, and that's what they want to see. So this is really a school for the kid who just cannot get enough of creative stuff, art, design, film, any of that. The person is doing this 24/7. This is a very specialized school. There are no intercollegiate sports here. There are no fraternities or sororities. They do have club sports. You're talking about a school with 1,600 undergraduates, 112 faculty members. Yeah, they're located in a tight 49-acre campus, plenty of green spaces. Obviously, you get the amazing Florida weather. You can even see the Sarasota Bay from some of the buildings, which is nice. And one thing I absolutely love about this school is they have a really strong placement program. So they work assiduously at getting you summer internships in your area of interest. So they're really good at that, the job placement part. They never used to be, they'll admit it, but they've beefed that up considerably the last 10 to 15 years. So basically, they have incredible connections they use to get you summer internships. And they have something else, which I love. They call it co-laboratory. And what co-laboratory does is it brings employers to throughout the year who need projects done. So it's you've got employers and they need design, they need something done. They come to the school, partner up with students, and allows the students to foster a great working relationship with future employers, but also make money on the side. Employers get what they need, whether they need a film project done or they need something else done, and the students get to make money.
And Dave, one thing I absolutely love about Ringling is their great pre-summer program. I can't recommend this more highly. What happens is it's a 4-week residential program, and you get to know what it's like to actually experience the environment. What is it like to be in a very focused, concentrated art school? You take 4 courses, 4 foundation courses, things like 2D, 3D, figure drawing. And then you also have 2 electives, things like business of art and design and graphic design, which they call their immersions. And this is one reason I like working with students earlier, because this program is ideal for rising juniors or rising seniors. And they will also have some students that are going to come to Ringling in the fall that will do this program after their senior year just to, aid in their transition to the school. And so back to their majors again, all of their programs are really strong. If I had to pick their strongest programs, they're certainly most famous internationally for their 3D graphics and animation program. That has been a staple for a really long time. A new program they have that's really catching on is their virtual reality. So this is the only 4-year BA that I know of. It was the first in virtual reality. And so this is where you're learning to design, create, analyze immersive experiences in multiple industries like gaming, healthcare, architecture, advertising, and education. And take a guess, Dave, how much money virtual reality is expected to be as an industry in the next decade?
Billions and billions and billions of dollars.
You got it right, my friend. 80 billion. Right. So that's a hot major. Right. Another area where they've won a lot of awards is their graphic and motion design. Yeah. Very strong major. They've produced a lot of award winners coming out of that. And their film school is hot. So it's considered by many to be a top 15 film school. But what's interesting is only 3 in the top 15 are undergraduate focused. So most are grad programs. So what happens in most film schools is you're not even touching a camera till your junior year. Whereas at Ringling, because once again, they don't have those 2-year prereqs, you're doing 3 to 5 short films a year right from your freshman year.
Cool.
So building your portfolio. Another major I love they have this very unique major called the Business of Art and Design. And this is really cool. So sure, you learn accounting and you learn finance and you learn contracts and you learn social media and you learn strategic marketing, but it's all done through a creative lens. So these are the people that go on to be the creative directors that run clothing brands, that produce animated films. These are your project managers. They're getting their business degree with a focus and concentration on art and design. Scholarships, that automatically will include you for a portfolio scholarship, 6, 8, or 10,000 automatically. And then they do have need-based financial aid. They can't meet full financial need like most schools, but they, on average, meet about 50% of a family's financial need off of a need-based analysis. So if you're on the lower or moderate income side, maybe tough to afford Ringling, to be honest. You're going to need to get a lot of outside scholarships. They do have some generous things when you're there, very generous compensation. If you're an RA, they cover all room and board. They pay tour guides, and they pay you to be a lab supervisor. I mentioned before, no sports, no collegiate sports. They have lots and lots of clubs, though, a lot of creative clubs like culinary, music, etc. It's co-ed, but 2/3 women. It's going to hit you for about $70,000 cost of attendance. Very diverse school. Just to look at some of the racial international, 56.3% Caucasian, 10.4% Asian, 20.5% Latinx, 4.6% Black, 23% international from a lot of different countries. So that's Ringling, Dave. What popped out to you?
Well, I love arts and design schools for a couple reasons. As you know, Mark, my little sister Kim went to Parsons School of Design.
She sure did. She's not so little anymore, Dave.
Not so little. And she had a very illustrious career in fashion design until she switched over to real estate, and which she's also doing very well.
That was only a few years ago, so she had a good 25-year career.
She did.
Design. Yeah.
And then when we went to high school together, we went to high school with a good friend called Robert Coleman, who was one of the first to go into computer-aided design in Canada at Ryerson. And he later ended up with George Lucas in Lucasfilm, heading up the computer design team that did the second Star Wars trilogy and actually won an Oscar.
Nice.
So I have a lot of experience with people who have done creative things. And I will tell you this, that when you look at all the fields that may be impacted by artificial intelligence and the technocratic takeover of our mainline jobs, I think the last fields to be touched will be those that specialize in the creativity and imagination of the human spirit. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if I look at the people who graduate from colleges like Ringling and they are on the top 10 most wanted job lists of the future. And Mark, you and I have talked about the fact that we're all talking about online business, online education, online shopping. Well, guess what, folks? What are all these technology companies going to be wanting? They're going to want visual computer-aided graphics, 3D, people who specialize in film and how to bring the visual medium to different fields like marketing. That's all what Ringling offers. So I think could be a real hidden gem going forward as we see the changes that we've talked about happening right now.
Yeah, and I just want to debunk the myth that you don't have to be a starving artist. You need a plan, okay? Yeah. You need a plan, but you should have a plan whether you're a biomedical engineer major. You should have a plan of how you're going to take your degree and translate it to the workforce, you know? Every major requires a plan. Yeah. In fact, one of my disappointing conversations was with one of my students who went to Duke, majored in biomedical engineering, and was not employed for her first few months after graduation. That's not supposed to happen.
Right.
So you need a plan no matter what your major is. But there are absolutely paths to pursue the arts and not live in the parents' basement and have a Starbucks job. Just have to know what you're doing.
Right.
So anyway, Dave, as you get ready to hit the road for next week, my friend, you need to be safe. I know this is your calling, and you said, you do this and you're used to being in that emergency room, but I'm hearing these stories of North Jersey and New York City, and just be safe. That's all I can say.
Well, we walk in the grace of God, and I'm trusting that he will keep us all safe through these really, really tough times. I'm just blessed to be healthy. My family is healthy. I'm going to be sure that I have my own cachet of masks and personal protective equipment, but these are difficult times. And so not just for us in the medical field, but for everybody, my heart goes out to all those who have lost jobs or are facing financial uncertainty. And for all of us, we just have to hang in there, keep strong, keep the faith. The Lord will provide, and we will be seeing each other through the other end of this tunnel. So
well said. That's a great note to end on. Yeah. I do want to throw one more thing. We were serious. Dave really means it. If you're on the road and you want to meet him, shoot us an email at questions@yourcollegeboundkid.com. We'll let you know if he's traveling to a state near you, and you don't even have to bring cookies.
No, you don't. But if you do, I love oatmeal. I'll even do a chocolate chip.
Nothing like dropping a little hint in there, man.
Right.
I don't blame you. All right. Take care.
Mark, you take care, my friend. I'll see you. Right. We'll see you soon. Okay.
Hey, we'll be on that virtual family reunion on Zoom later this afternoon.
I'm looking forward to it, my friend.
And that's our show. A big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. Your College Bound Kid is produced by Dave Vasaya of podcastengineers.com. If you find this podcast helpful, it would help us tremendously if you would subscribe and write us a review on your favorite podcast listening station. And please be sure to click the share button and send this to someone you know that can really use this information. The amazing music that you hear is by Victor Allen Weeks. Our image editor is Tauha Khan. Webmaster is Stalianos Dimitru. And marketing designs are by Kimberly Blass. And if you want to get a copy of the book, 171 Answers to the Most Asked College Admissions Questions, you can go right to 171answers.com. And if you want to have a college coaching session with Mark, you can send him a text to area code 404-664-4340. And if you have a question or a few questions that you would like to ask us, and we'll include them on the show, you can just email us at questions@yourcollegeboundkid.com. Every week, we'll take one question and include it in the episode. We don't like your questions. We love your questions. So send them our way. And by the way, check out our website, yourcollegeboundkid.com. Again, we thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to meeting with you again next week.